One of the best ways to learn how to write an introduction paragraph is to look at models of good introduction paragraphs and those that may not quite meet the requirements of a good introduction paragraph. First off, let's take a look and read through this first introduction. In the year 1346, Europe, Northern Africa, and nearer parts of the Middle East had a total population of approximately 100 million people. In the course of the next few years, a fourth of them died, victims of a new and terrifying illness that spread throughout the area, killing most of those unfortunate enough to catch it. The disease put an end to the population rise that had marked the evolution of medieval society. Within 4 years, Europe alone suffered a loss of roughly 20 million people. The disease responsible for such grim statistics was the bubonic plague, and this particular outbreak, lasting from 1346 to 1352, was known as the Great Dying or the Great Pestilence. Later, it was appropriately referred to as the Black Death, a name that has come down through history. Although the effects of the Black Death may have been particularly catastrophic, striking as it did after a long period in which the disease had been unknown in the West, this was not the first time the plague had ravaged Europe. Some 800 years earlier, during the reign of Emperor Justinian in the 6th century, there was an epidemic of similar proportions. There were also repeated, if widespread, epidemics in the 2 centuries after the Black Death. The disease has undergone a precipitous decline since that time, but it still occurs sporadically in various parts of the world today, including the US. Now, as we take a look back at this introduction, we ask ourselves, what is its thesis? What is its purpose? And we can see that its purpose in this paragraph here is that this essay will be talking about the many different epidemics, whether it be the Black Death, the ones that occur sporadically since, the one from the time of Emperor Justinian. Overall, the thesis is they're going to prove that these epidemics have happened throughout time. Now, the next thing that you want to look at was, is there a good hook here? Is this written in a way that really makes it interesting, that makes you want to read on to find out more about these epidemics? Well, the fact that approximately 100 million people were going to face such epidemics, that 20 million people in Europe alone were going to die, and the fact that these have happened over periods of time, and even here in the United States, I want to know more. And then, of course, the other part to our introduction is whether or not there was that roadmap. Did they outline in a way how they were going to actually show this? Well, if we go back and we take a look, we see that they start out by introducing us to where, Europe, Northern Africa, the Middle East, later on the United States. It goes to when, 1300s, but also back with Justinian's time period in the 6th century, even here in the United States, for the where and when. Then it continues on to who, the many different people who are facing this catastrophic epidemic. And we know by looking at this paragraph, this introduction, that they're going to be covering issues like the Black Death, that they're going to be covering the epidemics of similar proportions back under Justinian's time period, and also that they happened a couple times after the Black Death, and even so, again, here in the United States. Without giving us all the details and all the evidence, he gave us a great roadmap of how he's going to show his purpose, which is to show the different epidemics that have occurred throughout time. Now let's take a look at this paragraph. Again, an introduction on the same topic. Let's read it first. From the earliest times, human beings have been affected by many things. Often, some of the things that have affected human beings have been death and disease. Disease is always with us, and some people die from it. Everybody eventually dies from something. At times, when some people die in great numbers, we say there is a plague. The meaning of the word plague comes from a Latin word meaning blow or misfortune. The dictionary today says that plague can be anything that afflicts or troubles, calamity, scourge, or any contagious epidemic disease that is deadly. One of the most deadly of all plagues was the bubonic plague of the 14th century. It killed people right and left, and this paper is going to be about it. Well, as we look back with this one, and we ask that question about its thesis, it seems to come right at the end, and the reader has a tendency to point it out to us. You know, this is what the paper is going to be about. Now, oftentimes in an introduction, you shouldn't do that, because if you state your thesis, like she does right here, we know that your essay is going to be about the bubonic plague. Now, does this essay have a hook? Does it create interest? Well, if we look at our introduction, you see that it's going to be about disease, and that disease has always been happening, from the earliest time, and so forth. They give us a definition of plague, a couple of different definitions, but there's no hook there. I'm not really interested in reading this. It seems like it's going to jump around all over the place, and they can't even decide what definition are they going to use. Now, at the same time, boy, if they use this misfortune and in their introduction hinted at all the misfortunes that were happening, not just that we all eventually die, everybody pretty much knows that. And that is misfortunate. But how does a plague lead to misfortune? Hint at that, and you'll hook us. And then there is the other question that goes along with an introduction paragraph, and that is the idea of creating the roadmap. Give us a sense of what direction they're going to take. Well, they do give us some time period that is going to start from the very beginning of human beings. Although we do jump up to the 14th century here with the bubonic plague, there is a sense that although this happened from the earliest of times, we're only going to hear about the bubonic plague in this essay. Okay, well, if that's their thesis, they can stick to that. But how are they going to go about doing that? They give us a definition of the key term, plague, okay? And the idea that people do die. And it's going to come from disease. Now, with this type of a roadmap, we find that this could simply be a definition of the bubonic plague, instead of an essay about the death and misfortune that plagues like the bubonic plagues cause. And that, in this case, it's going to be not very direct, not very concise, and probably not very interesting. Oftentimes, a beginning like this to an essay is because the writer is not fully confident enough about the ideas that they have to share in their essay. In this case, it seems like it's going to ramble on. Now, in a rough draft, that might be okay, but when we get to that final draft, we want to make sure our introduction paragraphs state our thesis, have a hook to make it interesting, and give us a direction, a roadmap of how you're going to share the topic with us.